Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Bishop Simpson, will you offer the prayer this evening?
My Father God, we thank you for the opportunity to be with our city commission. We ask you to bless them today, protect them and watch over them, watch over our city, and continue to lift us up, oh God, in the name of Jesus we pray. Amen.
Thank you, sir. This is considered a special meeting of the City of Pittsburgh Commission, called at 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday the 19th. There will be no public input this evening. We'll go directly to the consent agenda. Do we have any removals from the consent agenda?
Item B and D.
Item B and D? Anyone else?
No.
Okay. We will then consider a vote for item A, C, and E.
I'll make a motion to approve item A, C, and E.
Second? Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to accept items A, C, and E. Roll call vote.
Brooks.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
McNay.
Yes.
Munsell.
Yes.
Sigley.
Yes. Item B. You have any?
Yes, he's coming. Good evening, guys. I was just wanting to know if any of the businesses listed here have ever been cited for selling to minors?
Historically, that's a good question. You recall?
Not to my knowledge, ma'am,
Yeah.
they're not. These processes with these businesses, we do a background check on the applicant, and within the preceding 2 years, if there's ever been a violation of an alcohol-related ordinance or a crime involving moral turpitude, then it's a thing for consideration, but I don't recall there being one of these.
Okay. I know in the past I've seen where at times they went around and sent someone in just to see if they could buy being underage, and it was a pretty good record, so to speak, but I would move to approve if there's none.
No.
Thank you.
Second. Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve item B. Roll call.
Brooks.
Yes.
Height.
Yes.
McNay.
Yes.
Munsell.
Yes.
Sigley.
Yes. Item D.
Okay, as far as this dance hall license goes, I was reading the ordinance about dance hall licenses and everything. It's, if you've never read over it, it's kind of confusing because it acts like any type of dance anywhere. Why just bars need dance hall licenses whenever it could apply to other things like, say for instance, Memorial Auditorium when they have events in the basement or,
Well, Memorial Auditorium goes through a special event permit application.
there's a special
process and
event.
multiple
So
tiers
like
through
wedding
multiple
receptions and things like that?
Yes, that goes through a special event process through multiple organizations within the city. And also, no, this dance hall license is not exclusive to just bars. If an entity such as a juice bar that serves non-alcoholic beverages wants to apply, they can apply for a dance hall on an annual basis.
Okay, so,
Does this not seem kind of archaic, though, dance hall? I mean,
The history of this precedes me, so I don't know the exact, when this came to be in existence. However, there is a structural safety component in this that we recommend actually stays in place, because it's not just the police department that reviews the call history for the location. The fire department has to verify there are no hazards regarding fires, and the building codes department has to verify like structural, electrical, plumbing codes are met for there to be that many people doing a specific dance in that location.
well, don't they do that anyway, even if it's not a dancing?
I can't speak for the other agencies and entities when they do their licensing. I can't really speak for what we do, but I do know within this ordinance, it specifically denotes that those things have to be met.
wouldn't insurance carriers require that? I mean, I would think in a business.
That's a private organization. I don't know.
Well, it seems funny because, I would think there would be other ones coupled in with this. For instance, maybe like some of the other bars that I've not seen any of their names, or say, I was asking like maybe instance Kansas Crossing Casino. I mean, they have concerts, other people dancing, they serve alcohol also. Are they required to have a dance hall license? They're in the city limits of Pittsburgh.
If they don't have an established dance hall, but if they have a special event that requires a certain consideration.
So that still falls, so anything downtown even, like when we have street dances and beer gardens and,
Again,
that's all
that's a
special permit?
event permit.
Okay. Even at Lincoln Park, like during Little Balkans and when there's bands playing in the band dome and,
The 4th of July, Little Balkans, all those go through a special event permit process for the entire city.
So in this particular case, this institution has dancing available all the time, like when they're open? Is that the difference that?
Yes.
Okay.
so what about the ones who don't get a license? Because this is probably, I mean, I know he's up for,
There's an enforceable mechanism through the police department. If you're actually having like what we consider like a routine dance without a license, then you can be cited through the municipal court here.
Are they cited?
I'm sorry?
Are they cited?
Yes.
how do you enforce the permit, so to speak? Because I know he's up for renewal here because he's applying for one.
This isn't a renewal, this is a new application
New
process.
application.
He let his old one expire, so this is
Okay.
essentially a new application process.
So what about other ones that are expired or non-existent?
They would have to go through the new application process from what I understand.
So what if they don't?
And
Then
they're cited.
there's an enforcement mechanism in place.
And that's if they routinely have dances?
Typically, they're advised by City Hall, and then we have our alcohol enforcement officer supervisor that will give them courtesy calls to renew those licenses if they have lapsed. And they'll be given a grace period for an extended period of time, basically. And if they fail to do that, then they'll be cited.
So you're only talking about 7 businesses this applies to roughly in town?
Yeah, roughly.
Would it take Counselor, would it take an ordinance to delete this?
Well, I mean, yes, anytime you have an ordinance and you want to repeal it, it takes an ordinance to do so.
Okay.
But why would we want, I mean, you just said that there's lots of safeguards that are put in place if an institution has dances routinely. So why would we want
I
to?
think the way the police department looks at it, it's a reducer of the risk or the liability for the city. From the police department perspective, there's different layers or different inspections that need to take place. We're certainly open to the city attorney to review that and give recommendations, and because we're open-minded to updating laws and things like that. But from our stance at this point, it's just a liability reducer for the city.
I think we should ask the city attorney to do that and bring it to us in January.
So to do what? To eliminate it? To change the terminology? What?
To inform us on what's happened in the past, how many sightings we've had, and the problems we've had with it.
Now, the city prosecutor is actually the legal advisor for the police department. And, you know, I haven't prosecuted for the city since the mid-nineties. And so I think that role would be more able to find the research and I guess the history that you're looking for.
Okay, well,
I think it needs to be brought up to the times too. I mean, I understand what you're saying about safety in buildings, but each one of them has to have a certificate of occupancy, so they would have passed the necessary requirements by the codes department, I would think. So
So is,
I'd like to take a look at that too, because the way it reads, I mean, public dance hall means any room, place, or space in which public dance shall be held. Aside from the special events, I understand that, but there are only 7 ones here, and of those 7, only I would say there's, right at the moment, 3 that don't have one. So what it looks like, so,
so you've identified 7 places where there's dancing routinely?
well, where this applies, according to city records.
Oh, okay. With,
So, you know, it needs to be a level playing field, I would say, for one. And if they don't have it, why? If they do, good. But if it's expired, which I know he's reapplying here, but there's other ones that are expired right now, and there's one that, or two that I see that don't even have it. So I just want to make sure we're treating everybody fairly, but also keeping in mind the
We either
safety
apply
factor.
the ordinance or we don't.
Yeah.
If
Well,
we're
it's
not
up to the
gonna apply
individual
it,
business
it-
to come in and reapply.
What's
As
that?
a business owner, if I say I don't want to have dancing.
Well, how do you
I'm not
know
gonna
that he's
reapply
gonna
for a
come in and do
license.
that?
But if they're having dancing and it's in violation, they don't have a license, then yes, they can be cited. But if they are not having dancing anymore in their facility, this is not something that we're gonna make somebody give if they don't have a license, or if they don't have a dance.
But music in an establishment doesn't necessarily mean, I mean, it could be music just for the mood, but they can't govern people dancing anywhere in the establishment. But I appreciate the information, thank you. I would move to approve Brian's license.
Second.
Been moved and seconded to approve the license for McCarthy's Pub. Roll call, vote.
Brooks.
Yes.
Height. McNeigh.
Yes.
Mansell.
Yes.
Segers.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, we go to a public hearing now. 2023 budget amendment. The city advertised for a public hearing to be held on Tuesday, December 19, 2023 at 5:30 PM in the City Commission Room located in the Law Enforcement Center located at 201 North Pine to hear and answer objections of taxpayers relating to the proposed amendment use of 2023 funds in the 2023 budget.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. We are required to amend the budget for funds that may exceed budget authority. The funds that are being amended include the Section 8 fund due to program expansion and the Special Parks and Rec fund due to increase in revenue and liquor tax revenues. Are there any questions about the funds being amended?
We like amending more. We like that. Let's see. So we're advertising, is this a public hearing
We're
tonight?
just,
We
yeah,
haven't opened the public hearing. yet.
Okay.
you guys adopt a budget every year through a public hearing process. If we're gonna amend it, then we're just having another public hearing for anybody to have a chance to discuss anything related to those two items.
Okay, so next week, open the public hearing.
Okay, thank you. Consider the following.
We have to have a.
You have to-
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just, I saw that here.
Yeah.
We'll need a yea or nay.
It
Um,
needs to
Open a public hearing.
Open the public hearing, okay, open the public hearing.
Does anybody have any comments on the budget amendment? Hearing none.
Now you can close it.
Okay,
And then
you need a,
you have to
we'll
approve
get a
the
vote.
Okay, I move approval of the 2023 budget amendment.
Second.
Been moved and seconded that we accept the 2023 budget amendment. All in favor by saying aye,
Aye.
opposed by the same sign. Consider the following. Kansas Bureau of Investigation, KBI, Pittsburgh State University, PSU project. Consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to approve the request submitted by the Kansas Bureau of Investigation and Pittsburgh State University to allocate $84,000 to fund a scoping study for a new regional crime center and laboratory to be constructed in the city's Research and Development Park, with the provision that 50% of the city's funds would be repaid if construction of the facility does not commence by December 31st, 2026.
All right. Good evening, Mr. Mayor, members of the commission. Proud to bring you a presentation on an exciting project that the EDAC got to hear about a couple of weeks ago. This would be a $40 million project, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, in property that is currently in the city's research park, just off Centennial and Rouse. This would be a $40 million project that would be a collaborative effort between Pittsburgh State University and Ed McKechnie and Wes Streeter are both here with Pitt State tonight and obviously could answer any questions from their standpoint. But to provide the presentation is Robert Stewart, who's representing the KBI. And again, this presentation was one that the EDAC heard a couple of weeks ago because the project is requesting economic development funds. So I'm going to ask Robert to run through the presentation and then I'll come up and talk about the recommendation from the EDAC. So Robert, turn it over to you.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, thank you very much for having me here tonight and for taking your time to consider what we think is a valuable and important project as we move forward with what the KBI wants to do, both in Pittsburgh and in the Southeast region. My name's Bob Stewart. I'm the Executive Officer for the Kansas Bureau of Investigation. Director Mativi extends his apology. He intended to be here. It was scheduled. But as you can understand, sometimes things take precedence and pop up, and he didn't have one thing that he had to try and work around. He had 3 this afternoon pop up that he could not make it down. So he's asked me to stand in his stead and apologize for his absence. We've been a part of the Pittsburgh community for 25 years down on Broadway. Most of you know that. And during that time, we've developed a good relationship here, and we've identified what the issues are and tried to fight the crime that is part of what the KBI's responsibility is. Recently, the KBI got a new director, Tony Mativi, last year. One of the things he was briefed on was the fact that our current physical location here in Pittsburgh no longer met our needs. We've been in it 25 years, it's adequately served us. But from 2 perspectives, from just the age of the facility and the modernization of our lab capabilities, our lab equipment is much more sensitive than it used to be and requires the right humidity, the right sort of atmosphere, and the current facility just doesn't cut that anymore. And we are also growing our agent population, which I'll talk to you about. It was opened in 1999, so we have been here 25 years. It's right down on Broadway. We have the capability of 3 scientists there, 3 laboratory scientists. Right now we have 2. They do physical testing there. So drugs, they can test and tell you what kind of drugs it is. All sorts of, anything in the physical chemistry world, anything in the atmosphere of DNA can be processed through. So biologic stuff can be processed through the lab here, but it ultimately would go back to Topeka and get tested in Topeka. 19 counties submit evidence through Pittsburgh, through our office right down the street. So it is not only a value to Pittsburgh, it's a value to the regional community as well. When the director got briefed about our needs, he looked at one thing that the KBI is very proud of. And if you haven't been there, I'll offer you the opportunity to come visit the laboratory, our general laboratory on the campus of Washburn University. I am a retired FBI agent. I've been around the world. I've seen the FBI's lab. I've seen Scotland Yard's lab. I've seen a number of really high-end capability, law enforcement scenario situations for laboratories. And even though I've been a Kansan my whole life, I didn't really know about that laboratory. And when I got to go look at it, I was stunned. We have a phenomenal facility in the laboratory at Washburn University. So I invite you all there. I'll be glad to give you a tour or have our lab director give you a tour sometime. It is world-class, it's state-of-the-art, and something as Kansans we should all be terribly proud of. The director looked at that and looked at our situation here at the current location and was trying to come up with options. And there weren't the right kind of options in terms of lease space or current build space or current buildings that were available that sort of met what we thought our needs were. So the director thought about Washburn University and the collaboration project between the KBI and Washburn and thought, I'm going to call President Shipp at Pittsburgh State and see what sort of collaborative effort we can come up with and whether there's any appetite in Pittsburgh and at Pittsburgh State for that sort of opportunity. And that leads us to where we are today. President Shipp was very enthusiastic, and everybody, quite frankly, we've talked to has been very enthusiastic about a bigger project, not just housing 5 KBI agents and 2 scientists here, but really leaning forward to address issues that we see in Southeast Kansas. The methamphetamine problem is not going away. The fentanyl problem is getting bigger and bigger and bigger. The crimes against children problem is getting bigger and bigger. We need to have a stronger foothold in this part of the state as the Kansas Bureau of Investigation, but also in cooperation with our partners here in Pittsburgh, the Pittsburgh Police Department, the University Partnership, and our regional partners as well, and even some of our state partners. So the facility, our lease runs out in June, so we intend on being out in June from the current facility. And Pittsburgh State has offered, and we have signed a lease for some space in their Tyler Research Facility, their cutting-edge facility. So our laboratory folks are going to continue doing their physical laboratory work on Pittsburgh State University's campus in the Tyler Center. we're making some adjustments. We have to add some added security, as you can understand, with some of the stuff that we deal with. So there's some tweaks that are going on right now over there, but we're working together as partners to get it all finished out so our lab folks can be over there with uninterrupted service to the community. When we start talking about it, very quickly, the folks down here identified a great site, which is the site that you all own right now, the potential KBI site that's listed there. We started talking to all of our partners, and bar none, every partner we've talked to at the federal, state, and local level has indicated that this is not only a good project, but a needed project. The Attorney General wants to assign a couple Assistant Attorney Generals to an office here. The United States Marshal wants space here. The FBI has indicated they might want some space here. They're subject to some congressional problems that they always have to worry about, but they're interested in space as well. And we certainly think that Pittsburgh State University's Police Department is also engaged and be involved in the project. That's from the law enforcement perspective, and there's certainly, I'll talk about the training side perspective as well. But we're starting to establish that to build what we think will not only work for today, but will work for the next 75 or 100 years, it's going to be an expensive project. It's going to be a $40 million project, which is the number we sort of set at. And here's a picture of the lab at Washburn that I talked about. You can see what sort of facility we have in mind here. Now, it's not the same thing. We're not going to have 50 scientists down here like we have there. This is going to be a smaller footprint of a laboratory here, but it's going to be a bigger footprint in terms of training. Washburn University has some training capability here and use it, and we cooperate with them, and some of our scientists are adjunct professors at Washburn. We anticipate a very similar arrangement here at Pittsburgh State and in Pittsburgh with the training site facility. There are many things that are needed down here. They're needed, quite frankly, in the whole state of Kansas, but that Southeast Kansas has an opportunity to take a front jump at. As I said, here are some of the partners that are interested and have already committed to some degree to wanting to be involved in this space. Here's the training aspect that I mentioned. Not only are we going to house active law enforcement agents, Pittsburgh State Police Department, KBI agents, and KBI lab folks, we're also talking about a joint space for training. The university is excited about the opportunities in the forensic sciences and forensic accounting. We can tell you as law enforcement professionals, we don't have nearly enough young students that are interested in the field that are getting the proper training. We need more young people to join the profession from everywhere from law enforcement officers, special agents, and police officers and deputy sheriffs, to scientists, to forensic analysis, to administrative support, to forensic accountants. You name it, we need it. And Pittsburgh State's in a position where they can help us meet those needs and also serve the students that they want to attract to the university. The timeline is pretty aggressive. We realize there's a pretty big need here. One of the things we're going to ask for at the state legislature this year is to fill out the KBI is broken into 3 regions. This is the Southeast region. In the Northeast region, several years ago, we established a Crimes Against Children task force. The legislature funded that, and those agents, 6 agents and 1 supervisor, were immediately fully busy. The caseload numbers into the 600s and 700s of crimes against children cases that unit is dealing with. Last year, we asked the state legislature for money for the West, and they funded it for the West, and we're establishing in Garden City just a smaller task force in Garden City. This year, we're going to be asking the state legislature for money for the Southeast region. So we want to fill out our 3 areas with a task force of special agents and task force officers that will specifically be geared and trained to do nothing but work on crimes against children cases. Online pornography, online enticement, all the way down to actual physical cases where children are being physically abused. We're going to establish that here anyway in Pittsburgh, but we got to find a place to put them. So that's speeding up our timeline for wanting things done. So that's why we are here, is to ask for your help to seed fund a little bit of that so that we can get what the actual drawings will look like, what the plans look like, to get all the partners together, say, here's my exact need, here's how this building will look, and hopefully it will end up looking and funded like the project in Washburn. We expect we're going to ask the state of Kansas for $40 million in a one-time ask. We're not going to put it in a bond. We're going to ask them for the money up front to fund this project. The director and myself and the associate director have talked to a number of the leaders in the legislature and gotten positive responses. At this point, they're now starting to ask for details. Show us what you're really talking about. Show us what you mean. And that's where we're here. That's where we're at now. We also, with Mr. McKechnie's help, have been up in Washington, D.C. and talked to our federal representatives, and bar none, all 6 expressed great support for the project. They're going to bring some support to the table. As I understand the process, though, their support often comes in training and in supplying facilities like that. So we're certainly intending to ask for help from our federal partners as well as this project moves forward. Some of the other, I mentioned the Southeast Child Victim Task Force. One of the other things in terms of training is there is no indoor range in this area for officers and agents to train inside. They need to be able to train all year long, both in terms of actual live fire inside, if they can, if the weather's too bad, or as we know, it starts to get cold and gets hard to conduct training outside, but also in classroom settings, and also in what we call deadly force simulators. I know them as what's called a FAT simulator. It's basically a video game. It's a very complicated, very expensive video game where officers and agents are given simulated weapons, and they're put scenarios in front of them, much like a video game, and then they're judged on the scenario. And usually lawyers will be there and say, we'll start to question them. Why did you shoot? Why did you use deadly force? Why did you yell? What did you see? What didn't you see? It's very, very, very valuable training for our law enforcement agents to put them in a little bit of tension and to give them the immediate feedback of trainers about when is it appropriate to use deadly force. And that's lacking in the state, and it's particularly lacking in the area. So that's one of the things we want to add into this training center, this facility that we're talking
I
about.
have a question. Isn't there something on that nature at the Army Reserve at the Pitt State Rec Center? I thought they had a simulated training session that you could go in.
No.
They don't?
If there is, I'm not aware of it, but I,
No, you mean for live fire?
No, it's just like he was talking about, put you in a situation. And
there are a number of simulators throughout the state, in varying states. I can tell you the FBI simulator.
The one, I can answer that
Yeah.
question. The one at Pitt State is based strictly for Army. It doesn't
Okay.
have civilian law enforcement training. We've used theirs before.
That's what I thought,
But
yeah.
it's not simulated for law enforcement. It's simulated like you're in Fallujah or something. So it's not,
Sure.
you can't do it in the city.
All right, thank you, Chris.
Thank you. There are a number of them around, and they're in varied states. I can tell you the one in the FBI office in Kansas City is probably 10 years old, and the scenarios are old. The technology, it's like playing an old 10-year-old video game to some degree. Just doesn't give you the same visual input, nor are the training scenarios as complicated as we need them to be these days. So it's a needed piece, and it would be a very valuable piece, and it will be used more often than not, should it come to bear. Here's our timeline, and as I said, it's an aggressive timeline. You can see where we're at. Actually, we have the 12th written down here, so I know your committee meeting moved. We intend that for that money to, the money that we're talking about being loaned here, to go to an identified partner that has already is on the Kansas State approved list of partners. They were the partner that engaged with the KBI in the state in building the lab at Washburn, so they have significant experience in this. Even though this is the preliminary stage, obviously that's a bid process for farther down the road to actually design and build it. But for this first stage, there's certainly a partner that knows what the issues are and can help us deal with where we need to go. And as I said, we're going to be asking this legislative session for $40 million from the state in order to proceed. And then there's our continuing timeline with the aggressive posture that the legislature is going to see that this is an appropriate project this year and fund us this year. And of course, we have fallback plans that if we need to reapproach them next year with the same goal in mind. I know you've got a long agenda tonight, so I want to kind of rush through that, but I'm certainly available to stand for questions should you all have any.
You mentioned that you've spoken to legislative leadership. What's the position of the governor's office?
We presented to the governor's office in a half-an-hour brief. They very similarly are, it sounds like a good project. We'd like to start seeing some more details.
So, Mr. Mayor, excuse me, Bob. Mr. Mayor, members of the commission, the EDAC, again, considered this a couple of weeks ago. Their recommendation to you tonight is that the city provide the funding for basically that layout, the plans that then the KBI and PSU could go to the legislature to lobby for the $40 million. The cost of those plans is just under $84,000, so they just rounded up, and that was the recommended amount. Even though hopefully it won't take a full 3 years, they did put the stipulation on it, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, that if construction hasn't commenced within 3 years, so the end of the year 2026, that half of that $84,000 would be repaid to the city. Again, hopefully that won't be necessary, but that was the recommendation from the EDAC. Also, at some point, I'm anticipating PSU and the KBI would come to the city and ask for the city to donate that property to them, because the city right now does officially own it. But as Ed knows, there's a process with the Kansas Board of Regents that takes a couple of months, and in order for them to be able to apply to the legislature for the 2024 session, it really wasn't feasible to do that at this point. But that obviously would occur before the project was complete, or I'm guessing construction were to commence. But the recommendation from the EDAC is $84,000, with half of it to be repaid if construction does not commence by the end of 2026.
I have one question. Has PSU considered the possibility of offering a degree in forensic science because of all of this?
I will defer to my colleagues at Pittsburgh State.
If I answer here, Mr. Mayor.
Go ahead. Yeah, for that.
Mr. Mayor, Ed McKechnie with Pittsburgh State University. So the concept is to move our criminal justice program from Russ Hall out there. And so you would have along with the crime lab that you would have there, you'd also have a simulation crime lab, just like we have with the simulation hospital. And as we look to identify increasing enrollment, this is certainly one of those programs that we would see should increase in double digits. So expansion, yes. Have we identified that exactly? No. But certainly the president sees this as one of the areas that, and it's what you've heard tonight, is there's a need in the region, and we should be a leader in providing that education.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
It's safe to assume that the 40 million includes the state-of-the-art equipment that you've talked about?
No, it does not. So when we went back to Washington, one of the things you have to learn is what will they fund and what will they not fund. By and large, the Congress does not like to fund buildings. They like to fund training. They like to fund equipment. And so this would go through the Department of Justice, and that has expressed an interest in that. And so in the document that you've got, the total investment in that part of the world that we've got out there, we're looking at total commitment from the state and federal government in the next 5 years, about $68 million. That includes facilities and equipment. And a big chunk of that will come from the feds on the equipment side, both through NIST and the Department of Justice.
Thank you.
So we own the lot that this might, what's the size of that?
Approximately 7 acres.
So that's, if that would fill their needs now, and in the future, if there's any other expansion, I don't know if there might be, that would be plenty of room.
I would imagine that the layout that you've got would fill most of that 7 acres.
The footprint would be pretty large, but there, certainly the thought will always be, do we need to expand in any way? As we said, we plan on, this is a 100-year project. Mm-hmm. So we plan on building to that to some degree, but there should be some footprint left to build the Bob Stewart wing.
Okay.
Blake, what did you mention needed to go before the Kansas Board of Regents?
Well, there's a process in place, even if property were to be donated to PSU.
Oh, so the city would donate the property to PSU for that? Okay,
Correct.
That's the part I
Correct.
missed.
Yeah, and
Okay.
it just takes a little bit longer than we have right now.
Okay.
Yeah, but just did want to set the expectation that
Sure.
that request is coming at some point.
Thank you.
I would move to approve. Or,
Mr. Mayor?
Sure. Yes.
So I would just like to put on my law enforcement profession hat on for a minute and just say how exciting this project is. I can remember back in the days before we had a regional lab of having to drive to Speak every day, or I'm sorry, every month, once or twice a month to go and drop off evidence or pick up evidence. The fact that the KBI continues to want to have that partnership and regional lab here is a testimony to, I think, the cooperation of all law enforcement in our region, whether it be the sheriff's office, the Pittsburgh Police, University Police, all the other small departments, and other surrounding agencies. It's an invaluable service. And I'm excited, obviously, to be part of this and have it affect my professional line of work. And I hope everybody can get on board and support this. That said, I would like to, because I am the chief of the university police, I would like to just abstain from this. Unless I would put the caveat in there, if there were a tie, I would be willing to vote on that. But I'd like to abstain from this vote. But I fully support this exciting project.
Thank you.
I'd like to make a motion to approve.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the Kansas Bureau of Investigation University project. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Been approved. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you all.
Thanks, Paul. I've got the next one too.
Harlan's Venue?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Harlan's Venue LLC project, consider the recommendation of the Economic Development Advisory Committee to approve the request submitted by Harlan's Venue, requested by Michaela Edwards to reimburse Harlan's Venue LLC an amount of equal to 10% of the total project cost associated with the renovation of the property located at 206 North Locust, with the city's investment funded through the revolving loan fund earmarked specifically for infrastructure improvements not to exceed $40,000.
Okay, thank you again, Mr. Mayor. This is an equally exciting project. This is another project that the EDAC considered at its meeting a couple of weeks ago. Would involve, as you mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the dilapidated property at 206 North Locust in Pittsburgh. I'm going to call Michaela Edwards, who will be doing all the work, and she's got a big event that she would like to be the first to take place in that venue later the fall of 2024. It is a project valued at up to $400,000. So Michaela made application to the EDAC, and they made a recommendation that I'll talk about in just a moment. But we'll ask Michaela to come up and tell us a little bit about the project. And feel free to scroll through the pictures there if you'd like.
Awesome. Thank you, Blake. My name is Michaela Edwards. I am the granddaughter of the late Harlan Swift, who ran Harlan's Auto Service at 206 North Locust. And I spent a lot of time growing up there, and it started to, I wish I could make these a little bit bigger, but if anybody's drove by there, it was in rough condition. It's a 1940s building. It's 4,000 square feet, and I am wanting to renovate it and turn it into an event rental space, and I hope this is the first of many projects for the city and myself, and this would be a project that I'd use to leverage to keep growing and renovating additional buildings. Yeah, sorry. It's hard to talk.
We go back to small.
Okay, yes. So this was right before. And then this was the back side of it. So, and this is where we stand today. There was a lot of cleanup already done, but there's a lot more to be done. So I'm seeking out all possible opportunities for funding, private and at the state, and then here.
So as I mentioned, Mr. Mayor, the anticipated cost is up to around $400,000. So the EDAC recommendation before you tonight is 10% of Michaela's investment, up to $40,000 based on that $400,000 investment. And with all of the city's funds earmarked specifically for infrastructure improvements, which it probably won't take much to reach $40,000 in infrastructure improvements on the project. But with that, would be happy to answer any questions that you
I
may
just
have.
have one question. There are a number of event centers in and around the region. have you taken into consideration the competition that you have?
Yes,
And
so.
you find a need for it?
Yes. So I worked with the Small Business Development Office that's partnered with PSU. We did a business plan. This has been a year in the making, and I think I will be able to set myself apart because we'll have an outdoor space. And when I was looking for an event center, I had several vendors recommending places outside of Pittsburgh, even though they're located here. So that really sparked my interest. I think there is definitely a need here.
And what about parking?
So there's public parking throughout. Don't think that's going to be a concern. Do you want to talk on that?
And obviously, with this being right across from the public lot behind Brenner Mortuary and lots of public parking in the area, unless Kim or Dexter would see a concern, that was not a concern that came before the EDAC necessarily.
What's the occupancy of your building going to be?
Yeah, so we're hoping 350 to 400 people.
So if you have that many people at any event, how many cars are you talking about? I mean, because that's kind of down around where I'm at, so you want to always make sure there's plenty of parking, so.
Yes. So like for myself, I'm planning on getting transportation from the local hotels for people.
Yes.
So that will help, and I hope I can partner with another business that does transportation and kind of keep that down.
Sure.
And cut down on drunk driving.
You have a dream.
Yes, I do.
Hopefully.
Yes.
So this says that renovations are going to be done by October 1st. That's
Has to be.
Pretty aggressive.
Yes, yep.
You feel good about that?
Yes, yep. I met with the general contractor yesterday, and they assured me that they can make that happen, so.
Sweet.
And
What's
Nichols
the
Wedding,
first
that'll be
event?
the first event?
Yeah.
Yes, October 5th, so
Okay.
tight deadline.
Yeah. She has motivation, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
If there's no further questions,
I'm sorry?
no further questions, I move to approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve. All in favor by saying aye.
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 Thank you.
Good luck.
Okay. Zoning change on South Joplin, it says 00, I don't know. Consider the recommendation of the Planning Commission Board of Appeals, Zoning Appeals, to approve the requested submitted by Jason Dickman, PE, to change the zoning of 0000 South Joplin, located at the southeast corner of Ford and Joplin, from R1B, single-family residential, to RP4, planned apartment house.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. So this is the corner, if you know where the Alumni Center is at Ford and Joplin, this is that open lot right there on the corner. That is just an empty grass lot. And the Tri Sigma sorority is wanting to build a new sorority house on that lot. So pretty exciting build there. So they are asking for a zoning change to be able to do that. The Planning Commission Board of Zoning Appeals unanimously voted to approve.
Move to approve. It's a great plan. I saw it.
I second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve the zoning change at 0000 South Joplin. All in favor by saying aye.
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 All opposed by the same sign. The disposition of bids, exclusive contract towing. Staff will present a verbal recommendation regarding the award of the bid for the exclusive contract towing agreement for the period beginning on January 1, 2024, and concluding on December 31, 2025.
Good evening, Commissioners. Earlier this afternoon, we had an opening of sealed bids at City Hall regarding the exclusive tow contract for the City of Pittsburgh as an entirety for all vehicles belonging to the City of Pittsburgh and anything the Police Department requires up to 1-ton vehicle weight. 2 bids were received from Larry Barrett's Body Frame and Towing and from Beans Towing Service. Recommendation that we move forward with a towing contract bid from Beans as they came in at $75 a tow and $12.50 a day of storage.
Where's Beans located?
Beans is located in Weir, Kansas.
And where?
Weir, Kansas.
Oh, okay. Have we used them before?
Yes, we have.
The past year, I believe, right?
That's what I
The
thought.
last 2 years.
Okay,
Yes. 2 years.
and we're satisfied with their service?
Yes, they've been responsive to our needs.
Pretty big difference in the prices.
Yeah.
Yes, yes it is.
Wow.
I would make a motion to approve beam towing.
I second it.
Been moved and seconded to accept Beans Towing as a contract for towing for the next 2 years. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Coverage 1, consider staff recommendation to enter into an agreement in the amount of $81,000 with Coverage 1 for the purchase of cloud-based telephone system to increase security and lower maintenance.
Mayor and Commissioners, as we have discussed previously, there are a number of changes we're going to have to make to our network that are going to that will make it more secure. The next two items that are in front of you are those are some of the major factors that we're going to have to do to move the network to a more secure condition. This particular one that we're looking at is moving our telephone system, which we are currently running through our network right now, into a cloud offering, right, which allows less of a footprint for potential bad actors to access our network. So we've and I think it's safe to say this is one of the many things that Jeff and I have discussed over the years to make our network more secure. But given our recent history, these things have all moved forward much more quickly, and this particular contract is going to be an important part of that security, of those security measures.
What's the difference between what we had and this?
I'm going to let Jeff explain it.
As far as the city staff and the public, they won't even notice a difference. It's seamless. The phone equipment will stay the same, numbers won't change. The servers will just be hosted in multiple data centers across the entire country. Gives us a little bit more of a stability in tornadoes, bad weather, threat actors, things like that. Regional disasters, it wouldn't impact our ability to take a phone call.
Will there be a redundancy?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, it actually will, it'll be hosted in up to 5 different data centers, all within the U.S. Borders.
Same information?
Yes, live, yeah.
One time you talked about off-site data storage, you know, somewhere that way, then it was out at the water treatment plant. Does this have anything to do with that, other than it's going to the cloud instead of to?
This particular thing doesn't, but we are still moving forward with that concept of multiple sites for our data.
Was that American Rescue Plan money that you were talking about at one point using for that?
Yes.
In particular?
Yes.
Okay.
References, I'm assuming that you've checked with other entities that use this?
This actually, yes, actually, this is, we've looked at a number of ways of doing this. In previously, we've looked at a number of opportunities or options in the past. This is a very reputable programmer or company that's providing this. Cisco is doing this for us. It's the system, it's a company we're using right now.
And it has no impact on dispatch or anything?
No, absolutely not. They're running on the state solution, which is already kind of in the cloud.
Okay.
We'll need to hear it.
Move to approve.
Second?
Been moved and seconded to approve the cover 1. All in favor by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Arctic Wolf, MDR/MR, consider staff recommendation to enter into an agreement in the amount of $114,009.35 with Arctic Wolf, MDR/MR, for the purchase of software and hardware that provide constant monitoring, detection, and response to cyber threats.
Yeah, this is, Mayor and Commissioners, this is one of the more significant components to increasing the security of our network. We've always been doing a certain amount of network monitoring. Obviously, that's a normal part of what we do to operate the network on a daily basis. This takes it to the level of what we would call state-of-the-art monitoring for threat detection. MDR stands for Managed Detection and Response. And it goes a step further by making those responses automatic in certain cases, and we define those rules. In other words, if this kind of activity is observed with going on with the network, then this will automatically, then it can automatically happen that certain areas get shut off, or things can happen within the network to make it more secure. So this is not just monitoring, it's actually a response. And it's also a detection that's being monitored remotely as well. So there's people who specialize in this that are going to be watching our network on a 24-hour-a-day basis. It just takes us to the level that we really need to be at this point.
Didn't we use some Arctic Wolf software during the recovery?
We have. They were our main vendor that helped us mitigate the incident. You have to have an incident response team when these sort of things happen. That's a part of the MDR solution. This is just taking it to the proactive level to where if this were to happen again, we would know a lot quicker. And it would also help the onboarding process, because a lot of times these attacks will happen and they're regional. There are only so many incident response teams, and you call them at 4 o'clock in the morning on a Saturday and go, hey, we're ready, we need some help. And they go, get in line. There's 100 more customers in front of you. When you're already in a contract with a company like this, that's just automated. You don't have to get in line and then wait, so to speak.
So this contract's for a year?
Yeah, this is an annual, yeah.
There is a number of, this is one of the components that we're going to have to absorb on an annual basis to increase our security. It's probably the largest single one that we'll have to absorb, but there's still going to be additional fees, then additional systems we're going to be bringing to you that are going to add to the security structure of our network.
Would having had this on board prior to our incident made a difference?
Enormous.
Enormous difference. So the number one factor that you can, I mean, it's only a matter of time. If you're targeted, they'll find a way in. Human factors, technology, failures and flaws. It's all about the detection time. How long does it take for your system to detect an anomaly? And then more importantly, how often or how quick can you respond? Without having 24-hour security operation engineers monitoring with AI and hardware, our best response could have been 30 minutes, which is about 26 minutes too late. They have a much quicker response in the 2 to 3 minute range, which means that if the threat actor were to get in, they can shut it down in 2 to 3 minutes. It's contained, before. It's like an outbreak. So.
I mean, we did pretty good considering.
Actually, we did amazingly well. I think that's an important thing to bring out. Thank you. The reality is we had a human intervention of something that this is going to represent on an automated basis. We actually had somebody identify some strange behavior and have the wherewithal and intelligence to call up one of our IT staff and say, are you guys doing anything? And because of that, we were able to shut down things quickly enough to really avoid what would have been a much more catastrophic experience. We would have had some service disruptions otherwise, which we didn't end up having.
So this is probably something you can't answer, but since we was hacked once, is there a good probability that we could get hacked again and this would?
Yeah, it is a matter of time. I mean, we've all known, it's one of those, there will be a tornado at some point, somewhere. When? I don't know. With hacking and the threat increasing constantly, it is a matter of time of when this will happen. Once you've been hit, if you do a really poor job of recovery and you just stand everything back up the way it was, yeah, you're more inclined to get it again. I mean, why not? Just keep knocking on the same door. That's why we're going through an elaborate process to re-engineer.
And this is, it's not only just a re-engineering, it's a constant upgrading of our ability to identify these threats. This has become so sophisticated, and I knew it was, but I was shocked in talking with our incident response team about how sophisticated these threat actors have become. And it really, staying one step ahead of them is an ongoing effort that we're going to have to simply do from now on. And this particular piece of software does update its own detection methodologies to represent the threats that are currently going on.
That was going to be my next question.
Jay or Jeff, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Hindsight, I know it's 2020, but, we're talking about this now. Why didn't we have this before? I mean, is this something that we discovered through the process?
Let me ask this.
Yeah,
Let me ask this. That's a fair question for me, Stu. Basically, it's cost. This is not a very inexpensive thing, and it's very difficult for us to justify this level of expenditure. And actually, again, as I said, you haven't seen all of the stuff that we're going to be bringing to you yet. Without a very strong reason to do it. We saw it coming, and indeed, we've had it planned. Jeff and I have discussed these things, and we had actually a plan to implement these things over the next 18 months, but instead, it's going to be looking like we're going to be doing it in the next 18 weeks, and it's just an expense issue. So good question, Stu.
Okay, thank you. I'd move to approve.
Let's second it.
Been moved and seconded to approve Arctic Wolf as for the purchase of software and hardware that will provide constant monitoring. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. So it is approved. Capital asset policy. Consider staff recommendations to adopt a capital asset policy.
Mayor and Commissioners, we are currently capitalizing and depreciating every asset over $1,000 in value with a useful life greater than 2 years. We would like to update this policy to capitalize assets that cost more than $5,000 and have a useful life greater than 2 years. Increasing the fixed asset limit will decrease the number of immaterial items capitalized and depreciated on our books.
So we're going from 2 to 5.
We are currently at 1,000, so
1,000.
any desk that we buy has to be capitalized and depreciated over 3 years, and it's an immaterial amount. So then that muddies the water in our fixed asset capital management system. So we have a lot of immaterial assets that are being depreciated that probably shouldn't be in there.
No questions, I would move to approve the capital asset policy revision.
Second.
It's been moved and second to approve the capital asset policy. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Aye. Resolution number 1274. Consider approval of resolution 1274 declaring and describing the corporate limits and boundary lines of the city of Pittsburgh, Crawford County, Kansas.
Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners. I have a technical change. This resolution is going to be number 1274. We still have it titled as 1241. Well, it's 1273 in the minutes and 1241 on ours. So this is actually going to be 1274 as the resolution number, please. This is just an annual process that we go through, basically incorporating Monty Industrial Park in our city limits, and then we cleaned up just a little bit out by the wastewater plant that had never been incorporated. So that's your major changes on this.
Does it show heritage?
Yes, it does show heritage.
Yeah, and don't forget heritage, the other thing next to the show.
Are you sure you got this right about the southwest corner of the northeast corner of the southeast corner?
Degree 2.
I'll default that to Pete. Actually, we had Earl's engineer work with Greg and their surveyor to get all the language up to date.
Good heavens.
If you refer to page 6, I think we can talk through those details if you'd like as well.
We'll need a
Move to approve.
Second.
second, been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 1274. All in favor by saying aye?
Aye.
Thank you, Mayor and Commissioners.
Thank you. We will now adjourn into well, I have to ask, the executive session, that's already planned in here.
You have to read it.
What?
You gonna read it?
Yeah.
Yes, we have to
Okay.
motion to recess, yes.
Okay.
Sorry.
An executive session is necessary to discuss personal matters of non-elected personnel pursuant to KSA 75-4319. B, 1, to discuss the city manager's 2023 evaluation.
I would move to recess into executive session for 20 minutes to discuss the city manager's 2023 evaluation pursuant to the non-elected personnel exception under KSA 75-4319B1, with the meeting to resume in the commission room in 20 minutes.
Second.
We're moved and seconded to go into executive session as previous. 20 minutes?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay. Well, there were no votes taken, no decisions made. We'll need an adjournment for the meeting. Then move to adjourn, need a second?
A second.
Moved and seconded, all in favor say aye.
Aye.